Creatives, community kind folks out there, hello. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and this week we're going to talk puzzles. Puzzles, clues, riddles, the things that we cherish and we love when we in our media, whether it comes to like mysteries, like murder mysteries or things, our police procedurals. We love them in our novels and graphic novels and such. When we turn the page and something is revealed that we didn't know before, but when we go back and look at all the clues in the past, we can figure it out. And of course, in our action television shows and movies, the hero just cannot figure their way out of a situation until they put the clues together, figure out the puzzle, and stop whatever nemesis they have. Well, that's what we're going to talk about this week. Now, just to let you know beforehand, and as people tune in and they check in and the stream propagates through to their notifications, just want to let you know that most of the rest of this week and part of next week, there will be a video, but we will not be going live. So the videos will arrive at the same time, and they may not be the same length, but we won't be going live. I have prior engagements and won't be able to do it, but I do have videos in the hopper, so I will be activating them, and they will be coming to you on a daily basis. Okay, let's get back to our theme for this week. So for those who don't know, we pick a theme each week. So this entire theme will be puzzles, clues, and riddles. Now, we've had other themes where we talked about blood and family honor and technology versus magic and those kind of things. Now, each day is a specific subject. So for today, we're talking about Monster Monday. We've got Tips and Tricks Tuesday, World Building Wednesday, Third Pillar Thursday that talks about exploration, and Future Friday. So Monster Monday, if you take a look at the thumbnail is of the head of Medusa. And for me, Medusa represents, is an example of one of many, and these tend to be mythological creatures that are like puzzle creatures. And what I mean by a puzzle creature or puzzle monsters, and of course, adding in the words like puzzles, clues, riddles, those kind of things, are, you could default them down to like problem creatures or investigation creatures. And the reason why I picked the Medusa as an image is because of course in classic mythology, we think of the Medusa. Hey Prue, what's going on? We think of the Medusa as like, she represents the creature, of course, that she looks at you, you look her directly in the eye, and you turn to stone. Now, we have different modifications off of that, but essentially, this is one of a number of creatures that have an advantage over you if you look at them directly. You know, there are vampires also fit into this category, where vampires can hypnotize you if they see you, or vampires are so powerful that the humans have to trick the vampire into going into a room and then breaking the window when daybreak hits or something of that nature. And many of these creatures, many of the ones that we can think of off the top of our heads, have like severe limitations, making them very, very powerful, making them especially against regular human beings without any training. There are these overpowering things that can kill you at a moment's notice until you find the limitation. But I would like us to talk more about the Medusa, where it's not a limitation on the Medusa's part, but a limitation on our part in dealing with the conflict, where the Medusa, you have to classically, the hero was able to use a mirrored shield and look into the shield of probably like mirrored bronze or something, polished bronze, and or brass or whatever the case may be, and look at it, and then able to strike her with using the reflection in the shield, and watching his allies turn to stone one by one. So puzzles, clues, and riddles. Okay, so let's describe what we mean by like puzzles, clues, and riddles. Now, normally puzzles and riddles kind of get mashed together in the role-playing sense, tabletop role-playing game sense. But for me, riddles are more or less uh, the verbal clues to solve a problem. So I don't know, what's a classic riddle. Um, you awaken, you um, during dawn you walk on 4, during the day you walk on 2, and then at night you walk on 3. What are you, or something. And I know I'm butchering it, but essentially the clue that you get the riddle, and then the answer might be you know humanity, right? You're born as a child and you crawl on all 4 legs, and then during the middle of your life you walk on 2 legs, and then toward the end of your life you have a cane, so now you have 3, or something like that. Whatever. I know there's you can use your Google foo and find all kinds of riddles. Now we also have puzzles, and puzzles tend to flow into uh, the physical portion of, as opposed to the literary version. So the literary version is you read words on a wall or a scroll or a parchment, or and the blind mentor living in a mountain, or the Sphinx gives you the words and you have to figure out the words. A puzzle is more of a physical thing. You pick up the cube and have to get the colors correct on each side. There are 3 levers. They're sitting in a middle position. You have to push them up or down. Or there's a floor with a walkway, and you must walk between the stones and things. So puzzles tend to be more of moving things or finding things in a physical manner and moving them around. And of course, the two are completely linked together. You may get a literary clue that tells you how to solve the physical puzzle. Prue says, they are definitely a weakness for me as a GM. I'm really not good at coming up with them. And as a player, I have only played a few times where they were actually fun. Yeah, we're going to get to that part too. And I'm bringing this up not because I think I'm an expert at it. I'm bringing it up because it's really difficult. So we're just going to try to find some elements where we can use them, and where not to use them, and how to use them, and talk about all the problems we've had using them in the first place. Prue goes on to say they have to be done just right, it seems. To be honest, I'm pretty intimidated by them. And Rickard says, sorry I'm late, had to do some physics as part of a Discord admin duty. Oh wow, okay. Far more important than my job. JP says, if the puzzle is thematic or part of the character backstory, it can really compel players. One, and this is a very slight aside, but they added this into 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. For me, the best part comes when, as the game master or dungeon master, that pulls on the trinkets list. So if you're unfamiliar, there is a D100 percentile list of trinkets that player characters can acquire for their character. And you roll on it, and it's some kind of item. It might have a unique shape or size or capability that has no game mechanics to it at all, like a book with blank pages and you cannot write in the book, or something of that nature, right? Or a medallion with a photograph in it or image in it that seems to move slightly, based on the time of day or something like that. And the trinkets list is an excellent tool for the game master to pull from when using the puzzles. Prue agrees with me. I love the trinkets list. Yeah, pulling on the puzzles and the riddles and things of that nature. Maybe their trinket specifically is a key to open up something, or it is one of the adversaries that PCs confronts recognizes it, or is wearing the same specific trinket, or they recognize it as something that they hold dear to themselves, or whatever have you. Maybe it might represent a badge or type of honor or something, So pulling on that is a great way to get your puzzles and riddles and things to have an answer the PCs possess with them without shoehorning it into the story. You know what I mean? Rickard says, I love the rule of 3 when it comes to clues, but I suck at puzzles. Yeah. Now, as we all know, and I'm not going to give away any details, but the last The last season of Game of Thrones has aired. I'm not going to give any details about that. And the fifth season, the penultimate episode, a lot of people were upset because no matter how many clues were given, and this is a GM issue, okay? Because Rickard brings up the rule of three. Sometimes you got to hit people with the clue stick. No matter how many clues were dropped, your players who are participating in the game or just might be shaking their head like, I didn't see that coming. You didn't give any clues, and everyone else like, yeah, there were a lot of clues. And so, yeah, Rickard brings up the rule of three when it comes to clues, and generally speaking, the idea is, for example, you have a statue that comes to life. The statue roams around and tries to defeat the PCs. So, as a game master, at a minimum, you should give 3 clues as how to stop the rampaging statue. So, one clue might be an old man comes by and says something cryptic like the shaped and form will come to life, but to stop it, you must drop a key. You must go to its home and press the key or whatever, something like that, right? So maybe the pedestal has an opening where you drop a gemstone or a literal key or place a specific item on the pedestal that will make the rampaging statue stop. Well, for you as the game master, you may think, oh, great, I gave him the clue. But the players, they're not going to remember that. So you should drop like at least 2 more clues. Maybe they find a dead body and someone's got a piece of paper and a parchment drawn where they've drawn the statue and the pedestal with a big giant arrow pointing down to the middle of the pedestal. And then later on, maybe someone finds, I don't know, they come across goblinoids or something, and the goblinoids are like, hey, we've got the clue, now we just need to find the statue. And someone else says to them, like, I heard there's something at the bottom of its feet. Now, I understand as a game master, dungeon master, what have you, it's just the way I'm describing that, it sounds like literally like that's not really a mystery at all. It's like you're literally beating them over the head with the clues. Unfortunately, because we're not writers, we are not making a movie, we're not broadcasting a television show, we're not writing a novel. This is a one and done. This is like immediate. You don't get a chance to retcon a lot of this stuff, right? So you really have to lay the clues down thick to let them understand what's going on. Otherwise, your players, and mind you, this isn't a criticism of players. People have different things on their mind, right? And they're playing differently. So, unfortunately, while you may know what the answer is, the players may not absorb that information in the same way that all of us can go to the movies. We can sit down and watch the exact same movie, leave the movie, start talking about the movie, and all of us arrive to a different impression of what we've seen, despite all of us seeing the same exact images, hearing the exact same words, hearing the same music, seeing the characters go through the same actions. So it's the same thing at the table. Rickard says, keeping on the 3 theme, I also like another narrative thing when you describe a room or something of the sort. It goes on to say, people tend to gravitate to the first or last things mentioned, paying less attention to the middle. So if you want to obfuscate things a bit, you can use that as a technique. You know what? You're so right. There you go, playing with people's psychology. But you're absolutely right. I've actually heard the 3 thing used, the theme of 3. I guess we're talking about now in terms of like you said, describing a room. Maybe you might describe the light in the room. You describe the dirt and it's musty, and then the last thing you describe is that it once belonged to a noble family. And so you're saying is that, okay, you're describing how brightly lit the room is. So maybe the players might investigate the torches and the sconces or lanterns on the wall, or the sunlight streaming in through the stained glass windows. And then they miss it's dirty and grungy and whatnot. And then they go to the last part. Oh, it's the room of a noble. Oh, maybe there's something expensive here or something of value. And maybe they look for some some valuable items or statuettes or jewelry or something that they can steal, thereby missing maybe what you were trying to do is give the clue that when they look around the dust and the dirt and muck, that maybe there's footprints or fingerprints, or maybe there's the tables and chairs, or maybe a big dresser against the wall has markings that look like it was slid away from the wall, which might give a clue to a secret door. But the players miss the middle part and just go for the beginning or the end. So when making, now here is, I'm going to say, is the biggest no-no you can ever do when it comes to puzzles or riddles. And don't ever, ever, ever do this. Sorry. Rickard says, I tend to use that on the first clue I give and then make it more and more on the nose. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you may even have to reiterate some of your descriptions too. Like, listen, guys, there's like dust, and it's, this place hasn't been touched in many years, but it looks like there's an area that's been, looks like someone's been here before, and the player's like, yeah, whatever. So it's a noble's room, right? So sometimes you might have to hit them with the clue stick, but the biggest no-no you could ever do with like puzzles or riddles is to only have one answer. That's the biggest no. I don't care how many times you've Googled some of the simplest puzzles or riddles you've ever done. You get online and you're like, oh man, these are all thematic. The answer to this is shadow. The answer to this one is blood. The answer to this one is fire. These are great. I'm going to put them in the game. Don't ever, ever, ever have a clue or a puzzle that only has one answer. And I would go even further to say on the literary ones, the riddles that only has one answer, and on the physical puzzles that can only be solved in one method, right? And unfortunately, it's very difficult to come up with problems and us not instinctively want to have the solutions. So in essence, you really don't want to do that, because you may end up having your players circle the drain and never go down, right? They're going to circle the funnel and get close to it and close to it. And you as a game master, of course, you have this brilliant idea, and you're like, oh, you're close. It's not mist. No, it's not fog. And you're thinking in your head, it's supposed to be shadow. They're not getting there. You mean silk, right? Clouds? Ghosts. And you're just like, nope, that's not the answer. No, that's not the answer. And everyone's going to get frustrated. You're going to frustrate yourself. Your players are going to get frustrated with you. Don't do that. Rickard says, I tend to use that one on the first clue and make it more of the nose. It gives the players a chance to feel smart, to catch it early on. Yeah, far better to have a player catch something early than late. Even if it means you were setting this up to the big clue was going to, the big answer was going to be revealed 5 sessions later, and they pick it up in the first session. Don't worry about it. Don't even worry about it. Better for your players to pick up something first than last. JP says, depends on your player. Sometimes you need to use the baby's first puzzles. Other players might need Myst level puzzles. Yeah, I remember Myst. Wow. Oh boy, you went back. Rickard says, I will say, go ahead to have a solved only by one method for side quests. Yes, if I call it the closed door, where in older Dungeons and Dragons modules, they used to have, there was a statistic called bend bars, lift gates, and find secret and concealed doors. And the closed door problem was that you would go halfway through a module, and every player would fail their chance to find a secret door or find a concealed door. But the rest of them, if you didn't find it, the rest of the module was useless, because you couldn't find a secret door that would go into the rest of the module and rest of the adventure. And the players would walk around the room and they may miss their rolls and things. And then, so as a game master, you're like, I spent money on this thing. I want them to find a secret door. And the players are like, yeah, we're looking around, but we don't know where to go. And that's just disappointing for everyone all around. So why, if you funnel everything to one die roll, one answer, and they don't get it, you just, hurt your own enjoyment of them finding out, and then you've destroyed their enjoyment of continuing. So don't have a closed door. Side quests, like JP says, I'm sorry, it's like Rickard says, like a side quest, a thing that if they don't solve it, they can still go on with the mission. Sure. And maybe they might even come up with the answer 3 sessions in and go, oh, remember that riddle? Yeah, it meant shadow. Shadow was the answer. Oh, I can't believe I missed that. But they're still going on with the adventure, traveling into places unknown. JP says, I'm usually happy with single answer puzzles, but never wall of progression or plot with a puzzle. Just have it be an alternate path or just miss a magic item or whatever. Yeah, it's definitely got to be a side thing. Like, for example, a very simple method would be you have a room, players go into a hallway, there are statues in alcoves, let's say 4 statues. Carved into the bottom of each statue is a riddle. And now there's a door at the other end of the hallway, and they could walk right past the statues, go right through the next door, and go on to the rest of the dungeon delve. But maybe if they solve the riddles for the statues, maybe the statue moves aside magically, or they find out there's a clue behind it, or there's the clues. The riddles give you clues as to what enemies they may face going into the dungeon. And so sure, one of them might be shadow, one of them might be fire, another one might be blood, and that may give them a clue like, shadow, fire. Oh, are we going to fight shadow demons? Maybe there's going to be a ancient red dragon or something because of fire, right? Now, if they never figure it out, if they go on an adventure through the next door, well, they might find some other clues, or maybe they might be surprised by hellhounds or something, and it won't be important for them to solve it. So that's just me coming off the top of my head in terms of having riddles or puzzles on the side, but you can still go through the locked door. Undo, hey, what's going on? Undo says, I think that if you use one solution puzzle, it would be wise to use them on side rooms with treasure so that progress is not halted, but you get a bonus if you solve the puzzle. Exactly. And of course, if it's on the side, you definitely don't want you missed the magic item that will completely kill the creature or whatever. Like, you don't want to do that either. You don't want to have, I don't know, the ice demon that can only be banished by the demon's blade, sword that's held in this secret room that they can't figure out how to come inside of. JP says, I love using a sand timer on my table. In combat, I might unleash a puzzle on the players. They have to find the answer in 3 minutes or the enemies get a buff. Now, dude, you're going where I'm going because it is Monster Monday. JP says, it's fun to challenge the players as well as their characters at the same time. And Rickard says, another trick is to have an intelligence check. Yeah, well, yes, that too. You can always opt to that. Rickard says, oops, hit enter too fast. That's all right. Yeah, Prue says, always in timing. I love using timers so much for so many things. Now, here is one thing players in different threads, whether you're on Reddit or Facebook or something, that some people balk at. And this is a side problem related to the charisma of characters, the social interaction with characters. But this relates to the solving the problems or puzzles at the table. And here's the issue. When you create a puzzle or a riddle or something, you put it at the table, the players may or may not be as smart or as dull as the characters they are playing, right? I'm not playing a 17. I am nowhere near a 17 or 18 intelligence wizard, right? So the idea may be that you may be giving them clues and riddles that the players in that world might far more easily solve than we players above the table at a meta level may not be able to solve, or vice versa, right? A player might be like, hey, I've heard of these riddles before and I know the answer and it's cool, but I'm also playing like a 6 intelligence half-orc barbarian who should know the answer, right? So there is that problem as well. If you're able to just ignore that and just go, hey guys, here's the riddle. I don't care if you guys work together to find the answer, uh, and just brush it aside. No matter what the mental capabilities of the characters are, then don't even worry about it. Rickard says intelligence check or investigation check or such. If the player really nails the role, instead of giving them a clue, let them explain how the puzzle works, ignoring what it was supposed to be entirely. Yeah, yeah, that is definitely a thing. Like maybe in your head you had a way to work it, but if the player figures something else out, you just scrap your own idea and go, you know what, they came up with a better idea, and in their heads they thought this was something else, and just go with whatever the player says. That's not cheating. That's awarding players who are really immersed in your world, and in their heads they've come up with a solution to something that you didn't think of. Definitely go with them, reward them for their hard work. JP says puzzles can also be great to hand out physical things to players. I love that. Printed stuff, puzzle boxes, and weird gibberish or optical illusions. You know, there was a store that used to be in the old malls in the 80s, and they would have you could go in and buy these relatively affordable. They would be carved out of like wooden blocks. They would fit together, or they would be like stainless steel pieces of metal, like rings and rods that would link together, and you could put them on a desk and like fiddle with them and figure out how to, take them apart or link them back together or something. Those were great. There were also lots of mind twister books that you could buy that were really cheap, where it would be like, you come to a town with 7 bridges. You could only cross each bridge once. Here's a pencil. Start here. You must cross each bridge one time and only one time and get to the end, or something like that. The bird, seed, chicken, and fox problem with one boat. You have to take all 3 across from one side to the other. But if the chicken is with the bird food, the chicken will eat the bird food, and if the fox is with the bird, the fox will eat the bird. How do you get all 3 across to the other side of the river? That's the thing too. Jake, I'll solve that at the end. I'll give you the answer to that one at the end. Rickard says, goes on to say, in that way, when the high intelligence character makes the check, the character solves it, and you let the player make up the solution as the character figures it out, letting them feel the character's brains. I'm thinking that they don't really need to have a good idea. It's just them playing out the intelligence of the character, just as you would let the barbarian player bench way more than the player could. Exactly. And sometimes we grognards can get really, we dive too far into the puzzle or the riddle without the idea that it's actually involved in a game. So we might be embracing more of the puzzle than going, you know what, we really need to let the players express how they are going to achieve, how they're going to express their way or achieve their way through it. Now, you guys know, because JP brought this up as the physical portion of it. Let's, for example, say the players need to get across a large chasm, and none of them can jump across it, but they have to figure a way to get across. And maybe one person says, hey, let's cut a tree down and let the tree fall across and walk across it. Maybe another player has a way to float across, and the other players have to dangle off of the floating disc spell or something like that. Or someone casts levitate and someone else has a rope, and you're going to use them as like a balloon or something silly. But in a way, basically setting off the problem and then letting them figure out the puzzle to physically get through whatever it is. Yeah, Rickard goes on to say, because let's face it, puzzles is one of the few places where you can let the player feel like they are playing a character smarter than themselves. You're very right, but only if you don't just hand them the answer. And mind you, again, you got to read the table. If you decide to insert like a puzzle or a riddle or some clues, you kind of have to figure out, like, okay, how long am I going to let them uh, stumble over this before I push them into more action? Or on the other hand, if they figure it out very quickly, am I going to make this? Don't let your feelings get hurt to try to make it more difficult than it needs to be. If they figure it out very quickly or something, don't I wouldn't worry about it at all. You're not going to run out of puzzles. You're not going to run out of riddles at all. You just allow them to take the win. Go, you know what? Give them the slow clap. Good for you. Cool. Now we can just move on to the story and just figure out something else. I would not want to hold on to that too deeply as a game master or dungeon master. JP says, sometimes the environment can be a puzzle in itself. This is particularly interesting in extraplanar areas where the physics are wacky and the logic is different. And I cannot agree with you more. Now, let's circle back to because this is Monster Monday. So what does all this have to do with monsters? Well, how I feel is this is a great way for you to introduce overwhelming odds to your players. Now, you can escalate the overwhelming odds, but one simple thing in doing this, for example, is the typical portal is open, releasing creatures into this world, and there's no way for the players to actually kill everything coming through the portal. So maybe, I don't know, the one demon or one insect comes out of the portal, and then maybe the next round 2 more, and then maybe another couple more rounds 3 more, and then 4, and then 5. And sure, some of the players might be more martially adept, and they can keep fighting the increasing odds of these creatures. But the other player characters may have to figure out the clues to actually close the portal itself. And we've seen this plenty of times in books and movies and television and graphic novels and things like that, where initially, okay, we can physically stop this thing. We're going to fight the creature. But unfortunately, there's something else happening that has to be solved, and defeating the creature isn't the most important thing. We've seen this plenty of times. We saw this in Game of Thrones. We saw this in Age of Ultron. We saw this in the first Avengers movie. It's there's an invading horde of something, and there's thousands of them. But if we take out the main source, the brain, the leader, the one with the staff that controls the undead, et cetera, we get to take out and solve the entire 1,000+ army of whatever is invading. You know what I mean? So that's one of the very simple puzzles. It's we're being overrun. Sure, we could dig in our heels and fight them, but maybe one or more of us needs to go around the side and actually hit the off button. Right. Undo says, I think that puzzles are meant to be for players, not the characters. Besides logical puzzles are meant to be solved by everyone. Some things are just not meant to be solved by dice rolls. And while I do agree with you, puzzles are more or less for the players, not the characters. Sometimes how do you say this? It's like, how long do you want your players walking on the treadmill before they realize that they're not moving anywhere? And so I definitely agree with you, Undo. A lot of that is very much like it's really for the players to figure out, especially if you have handouts. Like JP was saying, you having handouts or maps or images that need to be put together. I played with a guy who used to you could just print out a color photograph or something, or a map or whatever, and just cut it up into pieces, save all the pieces, and then give it to the player characters. And then, the players have to figure out to put it together like a real puzzle piece, putting it together. And then once they put it together, they solve the situation. And you guys were talking about timers. Timers could be an issue in terms of solving what's going on, where it's not solved literally until you figure out how to put the pieces together. And oh, by the way, you're being attacked by dire wolves at this very moment, and the only way to open up answer the riddle to the mystic door that will let you into the mountain and not be attacked by dire wolves is to figure it out. And so you can also add a pressure timer as well to get them to try to solve the riddle. Prue says, a fellow DM told me about this awesome puzzle she'd done that involved drowning risk and sharks circling under the players. She spent hours on it, but made sure to make a built-in safety valve. that just needed brute force. Of course, the players went straight to brute force, and everything else was forgotten. She was like, "Oh well," and that's going to be a thing, right? There are going to be some players that are like, "Oh, my character can, you know, my character solves everything with brute force. Let's go through the brute force action," as opposed to, as opposed to the hey, let's figure this out, kind of thing. Rickard says, I disagree with that sentiment. Everything should be able to be solved by die roll. Otherwise, we penalize players for playing character with more mental ability than themselves. And see, again, like you guys are talking about, like where Undo is saying puzzles are really made for players, not the characters. And then Rickard is saying, yeah, but you know, like I meant before, I'm not a 17 intelligence wizard that might be figuring out puzzles. Like that's their literally their career path, as opposed to me. And I'm like, I don't have, if I don't have Google near me or my Alexa or something like that, it's not going to work, right? You know what I mean? So having that balance and being able to default to one or the other. For example, maybe the character isn't that intelligent, but the player is. When the player figures it out, you just go, don't worry about it. You know, I know your character's not that smart, but you as a player are fine. You figured it out. Maybe let's be honest. Just because someone we consider lower intelligence doesn't mean they don't figure things out, even by accident or through experience. Like, hey, I'm not book read, but I've seen this before. You know, that's always an issue. And then the other way is to just, do a mental timer, right? Or have the sand timer or something and go, okay, I'm going to let them go through this for about 3 minutes. When it gets to 3 or 4 minutes, I'm not going to let them, tread water. I'm just going to give them a die roll and let them move on. And that's why again, not making the locked door or locked gate where if they don't figure it out, they can't progress. Don't do that, because if they can't figure it out, you still want your adventure to move ahead. You still want forward progress. So yeah, Rickard said, that said, puzzles tend to be group activities because it's fun. So I'm more saying it should be able to be solved with a roll, but a roll might not be required. Exactly. Especially if you have handouts or you actually find like a physical, do I have a puzzle nearby? Shoot, I can't find. Oh, I can't reach it right now. But yeah, if you have a physical, if you're able to find like really cheap physical puzzles, like dollar store puzzles, maybe those little things with the little orb that you have to take through the maze, and once they get it through the maze, they're done. There it can be something like that where you're going, nah, don't worry about the die roll. Once you figure the maze out, you're fine. JP says, a lot of my game is made for players, not for characters. So the game is kind of meta in that regard. And this is again where we talk where metagaming is. We kind of think metagaming, that's evil. No, not really. It just happens to be meta. And if it is, so what? Sometimes you just embrace it and just go, you know what? It is a group, puzzles tend to be group activities. Let the group figure it out. As a group, they would want to. The narrative of the story is they would all want to figure it out. And we've seen stories where the intelligent characters can't figure it out, but the so-called dull character accidentally leans against something or points something obvious out that everyone else is ignoring. So yeah, the dull character can absolutely help in that regard. Not die roll wise, but I'm saying narratively describing it, where all the players are trying to figure it out. So not a problem. Now, one issue is when it comes to using monsters and puzzles is that you could have the physical capabilities where the monsters are attacking the players, or the monsters are ravaging the countryside, or they're running around the dungeon, and using each individual solving of the puzzles may be able to corral or curtail or stop the creatures from doing what they're doing or going after certain things. Maybe they're going after individual innocents, or they are destroying the foundation of the castle or something. And maybe this is a way to drive the creatures, to funnel them into a particular area. And once they get all the clues together, this might be this would help the players stop what's happening. Maybe, I don't know, the elemental powers have let loose into the land, and there's windstorms and fires, wildfires and tornadoes and flooding and things. And maybe as they solve each clue, each of those environmental effects begins to abate until they solve each one. And so without solving any of the clues, the players might still survive. It might be pretty harsh, but as someone finds the clue or the puzzle piece that fits into the who's or what's it's, if they find the MacGuffin, that might be the way to solve it and then abate it. And so therefore, the barbarian that deals out a lot of damage, sure, can keep fighting the thing, but the bard who doesn't deal out the damage might be able to solve the situation by finding the clue, both of them being effective. Ricker says, I have always had the idea to throw a lock at a rogue who thinks that social stuff shouldn't be rolled, but I'm evil like that. Yeah. And you're always going to have that. There's no right or wrong, right? There's no, you should never take the stance that no one should ever make a roll to solve a puzzle, or the opposite way, where I don't want my players trying to figure it out themselves. They should only roll for their characters because their character just wouldn't be that intelligent. I think just embracing both sides, we have to default to the fun factor. And if the fun factor isn't there, if your ruling means that the fun factor disappears, then I think the ruling should change, not the application. There are also ways to make puzzles that are far more organic. Again, me, I'm a third pillar-ist, so I love using the environment. There may be ways to, maybe the PCs are being attacked by a horde of creatures, and if they cause an avalanche or a rock slide or something, they could block off a valley, and maybe the valley prevents those things from coming through. Maybe there's a flooding, and if they do the same thing, if they collapse the rocks into the valley, it will prevent the village down at the lower elevation from being flooded by the floodwaters. So you can definitely do those things. Definitely look into Zelda, Tomb Raider video games do a lot of puzzles, a lot of physical puzzles. You can absolutely incorporate them in. And we tend not to think of physical puzzles. We tend not to use puzzle when it comes to physical action. But physical action puzzles are definitely a thing that we tend to ignore in games, and I think they're great. Rickard says, rogue player. What's the DC? Me. 2 minutes. Rogue player. 2 minutes? Me. Yeah. Points at a lock. Time is ticking. Better start picking. Yeah. Isn't that the side note? True Dungeon, I believe it's called. Real Dungeon, True Dungeon, at conventions, role-playing game conventions. There are where the players go into the role-playing game convention and they pick a role for themselves, cleric, wizard, fighter, or something, and then they have to physically solve puzzles that represent the character solving the puzzle. And so it's a way for you to go on a physical adventure into a dungeon, and they come up with different unique ways for you to solve those kind of issues. Undo says, if you give them the option to roll, they're going to take it because it does not need thinking, just pushing a button. But what you could do is not offer the chance to roll by letting them try to figure it out themselves first, and then use the roll as using a die roll as a default when you think that they're still treading water and they're not moving ahead. Or the players might be like, I don't want to roll. Their first instinct, if given a puzzle or riddle, might be to first roll. They might just be like, oh, I want to figure this out. And so you could just say, hey guys, here's the puzzle. Hand it to them. You as a game master, like, look, I don't want you to roll. I just want you guys to see if you can figure it out, to have fun, physically messing with something or intellectually getting together. Like, oh, I've heard of this riddle. I read this book one time, but I can't remember the name of it. And someone else is like, yeah, it was in this Edgar Allan Poe thing or whatever. I'm coming up with something off the top of my head. But you get what I'm saying, right? Like you could, instead of asking for a roll, once you give them the puzzle, you could just default a little bit and let them try to figure it out themselves first, and then go, okay, we spent 5 minutes on this. We need to keep the ball rolling. You just go on past it. But I do agree with you, Undo, that if there's a role, it might just be the easy button. Like, oh well, my character's got, I get a +5 because of my character's intelligence. I'm just gonna, why do I want to sit down and figure this out? I could just roll. And you might, this is a weird thing to say, but you might want to train your players not to immediately do that. You may just want to, or just be upfront with it and say, hey guys, listen, look, I know your character's smart, and I know you've built your characters around a specific theme, but I thought I'd try something different. I really want you guys to have some fun, and I thought I'd try something new. Why don't you guys try to physically figure this out? Just be upfront with it, be meta with it. And they might go, yeah, sure, we'll spend a couple of minutes on this if you think it's cool. And if they really like it, they may just ignore the die rolling, right? They might go, no, I don't want to roll. I'm going to figure this out. Because some people might get frustrated. Like, they're like, no, don't roll for it. Rickard says, anywho, back to puzzles. How do you make puzzles who make sense in the world? Yeah, don't make the roll end the encounter. Make it the start of the RP for the scene. That's a good T-shirt. Yeah, I like that. Prue says, Monster Monday. Cool puzzle monsters like the Medusa. How to turn off or augment their special abilities like blind sight or whatever. Yeah, we'll get to that. So puzzles like why would make a door they have to solve a riddle to walk through, having to rearrange stones or solve a blacksmith puzzle. So, okay, I'm gonna so adding all this together. Okay, so the Medusa, the locked door, fitting it into the world, fitting these puzzles in. So one method, and this is a classic method, is that a greater power created the puzzle in the first place, right? The gods, the ancient ones, the wizards that locked away the fiends. It was during a battle between the celestial powers and the demons. It was a pact the elemental powers made. So you could have a powerful force created something that remains locked until the proper heroes come along and solve it. That's a very simple one. Why would someone make a riddle to open up a door? Well, they did it because it was supposed to remain locked until the honorable or the intelligent or the bold heroes finally got there to solve it. That's a very simple way to do something. But a puzzle may not be, how do I say this? A puzzle may not be something that was created to stop you. It might have been created because it was, like, for example, a wizard school could have puzzles and riddles just for students. For example, you may have first level, you might do a first level or 0 level game, or there might be an abandoned wizard school and the players come along and maybe the wizard school themselves created these puzzles and riddles for the sole purpose of teaching the students. And you can't graduate until you've gone through the puzzles. Now, you could play a game where the characters are students in the game. So it could be like a non-lethal or not very lethal-ish way for the players to graduate, although maybe the teachers are pretty brutal. Or it could go the opposite, that the players stumble upon an ancient school, and so some of the mechanisms in the school have gotten out of control. And so you could make it lethal today where it wasn't very lethal in the past. So that's an idea too. Also, let's see. Undo says that feels like holding them hostage to a phone app that prompts you to get the easy solution so you get the answer without investing the time. Again, like I said, metagame it. Just tell the players, hey, I'd like you guys to spend some time on it. Thereby, and I hear your frustration, Undo. I really do. And although I'm an individual that tends towards the positive, so I wouldn't dwell on the negative parts. I would instead just metagame the part and go, listen, guys, let's not just make this easy button. Let's involve ourselves and tell them, hey, this is something I think you might like, right? Say it up front. I want to do something different. I think you guys might like this. Try this new thing out. And some players might be just fold their arms and go, no, I'm just going to roll. There might be some players like that, but I think for the most part, if you throw a couple of puzzles or riddles in front of people, I think they'll latch onto it. I think more often than not, a lot of players would rather feel like they've done something great or smart or solved a situation rather than making a die roll. You're going to get some like that, but I think you could really, especially if you play it off like really cool, like, guys, man, I invested in this thing. Hey guys, why don't you try this out? Now, as far as creatures go, a lot of creatures and monsters tend to be pretty much just stat blocks. And, I hit it, it hits me. I hit it, it hits me. But what you really could do when it comes to things like Prue was talking about, like blind sight or turn off or augment their abilities, is that you could have either create creatures or have creatures that are extremely more potent than the players can combat, and then the players can find clues and solve the riddles and puzzles that will eventually stop it. I mean, essentially, it's the idea of stopping the Tarrasque, right? You could have players just try to beat the Tarrasque down until it's dead, but if they're 5th level, that's not going to happen. Instead, what you could do is you could find, maybe the PCs find a certain type of herb that if they burn, the Tarrasque is drawn towards it, so it'll go away from humanity. And maybe if they find a certain song and a certain type of music, that it will lull it to sleep. And if they find a certain type of, get a weapon forged from a certain type of material that fell from the stars, that it's able to pierce its tough hide, right? So you could lead these clues where, no, the PCs won't be able to fight the thing, to stop the thing by hitting it harder. Maybe there's a way to get around it. Like I brought up vampires and a Medusa, there are ways to get around things that are very classic for those creatures. You could create the exact same thing for your creatures, right? Like the troll that is that falls asleep because of the soft song that is sung to it, that it remembers being, when it was just a small little baby and it could hear these songs from the village or what have you, right? And the bard has to, maybe the players are trying to find the song that the bard has to learn to sing or play to lull the troll to sleep, because the player characters could never fight the troll on their own or what have you. Rickard says, slightly off topic, as a DM, I would like other DMs to think about, like, quote, why do I want to put X encounter in there? Which PC am I shining the spotlight on with it? And how am I going to do that? Yes. Moving around the spotlight is pretty important when it comes to puzzles. And again, if you want to get away from PCs hit the thing tries to hit them back, a puzzle or riddle really lets the PCs maybe get into it. I mean, for example, maybe the character who's playing a bard or rogue is really social, like a social dominant person. I can charm anybody. And you have the other players like, I can draw my sword and kill anything. And maybe you might have a third type of player that's like, well, I made a smart guy. I want to investigate stuff. And so puzzles and riddles really allow them to maybe they could find mechanical ways that improve the success of the party, and put those mechanical things in the game that allow them to have success in the party, so that they could succeed, i.e. the intelligent character helps the other ones out as well. Undo says, Monster can have puzzle solutions. In Metal Gear, when you meet the man on fire, the game prompts you to run, but if you puzzle it out, you can kill it by dousing it with water. How you do it depends on the map, where there are pool and water towers. And see, that's a perfect example, right? PCs fight creatures on fire. If you get close to it, it'll burn you. There's no way for them. They try to they shoot their weapons through it. It's basically like a big fire elemental. Let's, as an example, using your example, and someone figures out, oh, wait a minute, there's pools of water and there's a water tower. And oh, if we redirect the water falling off of the waterfall, it could douse the creature, or we can lead the fire creature into under the waterfall, maybe, or something like that. Again, using the physical terrain or aspects in the terrain. It doesn't necessarily have to be a pool of water or a water tower. Like, well, a water tower is a man-made thing, but it could be moving a creature into a room and moving a stone that locks the creature into it. It could be leading a creature into a pit that falls into the pit of nothingness. It could be leading it under something that's hanging from the ceiling and the cage falls down on top of its head in the ceiling. It could be maybe there's pipes or tubes that have some kind of fluid or something that if you break the tube open, it'll flow into the room. We've seen this with the modern day where someone pulls a pipe that has natural gas coming out of it, and then they turn on a microwave where they light a match or a cigarette, and they run out of the building, and then it eventually explodes when the gas reaches the heating element. I mean, you can actually add those things into the world that solves the problem of the creature. And of course, you've got mentally controlled creatures. The creature has a medallion around its neck, and the wizard has the same medallion. Oh, maybe we can't fight the creature, but if we take the medallion and take the medallion down, we can stop it. I believe there was a live play where I was listening to, it was on a podcast where players fight ghosts. They dispatch the ghosts. There are like 12 candles, like black candles or something, lit. When they kill one of the creature comes back and one of the candles blows out. And they're like, and they end up putting two and two together. Oh, wait a minute. Every time we kill one, it comes back, but one of the candles blows out. Maybe if we blow the candles out before the creature comes back, they can't come back, right? You could have something of that nature. Rickard talks about the Medusa in the Garden of Statues, or maybe a pool with a mirrored shine, or maybe the statues are all of a particular bird. Right? We've seen that before, where the clue PCs go into dungeon. Dungeon has a bunch of weird statues. They look almost lifelike. Basilisk, Medusa, maybe. Yeah, absolutely. Bruce says, yeah, DBJ began the stream talking about the Medusa. I just thought I'd try to bring us back to today's subject. Yeah, we always squirrel. We always are like, squirrel. We do that on this channel. So yeah, but bringing it back to the Medusa, because we've hit our hour mark, right? Bring it back to the Medusa again. The Medusa is a class. You guys are fine. The Medusa is a classic creature from mythology that I think we could really steal from. There's nothing stopping you from having an encounter, whether it's a singular monster or a number of monsters that have some kind of advantage that we as the players that are playing in your game can figure out how to take that advantage away from them. For example, fighting the Medusa and looking into yeah, exactly. Sorry, reading the chat. But anyway, looking into the pools of water and being able to, for example, the Medusa, you can't look them in the eye. We've seen that. What are the here in the States, the Netflix shows like Bird Box, where or A Quiet Place, where you can't make certain, if you make noise, the creatures will come after you because they have they don't have eyesight, but they can hear you. Not being able to see a creature, not making noise or using noise to distract the creatures. For example, what's the classic the land shark, the bullet, right? It digs through the ground and it springs out of the ground. You could literally make a creature that's blind, and the creatures, the PCs who keep making noise, they keep fighting the creatures, and someone maybe figures out the clue, and they're like, guys, if we stay quiet but make noise around the corner, the creature's going to go around the corner, and now we can sneak through the dungeon by being really quiet. Oh, the Minotaur. Yeah. Rickard says, plot twist. The Minotaur is actually lost in the death maze and is trying to figure their way out. As the players draw their weapons, the Minotaur thinks they are part of the maze's dangers. I like that. I like that a lot. Oh, maybe, who knows? Prue says, try to walk without rhythm. Ooh. Yep. Trying to, so because maybe the creature can hear the rhythm of your steps, and you have to walk in a unpredictable path. The Minotaur is going through the maze, and everyone knows the Minotaur lives in the death maze, and literally the Minotaur is trying to figure its way out. Of course, unable to communicate with the players. Maybe a player, well, that's a clue. Maybe a player realizes, hey, if we can convince the Minotaur to stop attacking us, we can all figure our way out, right? So maybe the Minotaur does know the maze, but just can't find the clues, or can't read the clues, or the riddles. Like the Minotaur may know every pathway in the maze. So that's one clue. Players follow Minotaur or befriend Minotaur or placate the Minotaur, but the Minotaur can't read. So now the players can read the riddles to find the clues that the Minotaur can lead them to then maybe there's a physical way to do it. One person has to press the button while another player moves a lever while another one pushes the door open, right? And by yourself, the Minotaur can't do it, and neither can you. But maybe together, each person has to work together to do the thing, to make the thing happen, whether it's physical or mental. And so you could have creatures that have either heightened senses, or linking this back to the players. Maybe they are there's some kind of creature that is out to destroy the Magi, or the black wolves kill every all of the faithful of the gods of light and justice or something. And so maybe the creatures are literally going after the PCs simply because the PCs exist, or what they do, or the emblems they wear. And if they figure a way out of it, they're able to you guys are crazy. They're able to solve the puzzle. Prue says, yes, option Z, befriend and help monster. One of my favorites, and definitely one my players could come up with, which I love them for. Yeah, yeah, befriending the evil thing instead of killing it. Yeah, of course. Rickard says, day 2457. I'm back in the middle again. I found some more humans in here that tried to kill me. I'm not sure why the builders put them in here to try and kill me. At least they had food on them. Yeah, exactly. Tesla Ranger brings up Assassin's Creed Odyssey riddle. If Theseus killed the Minotaur, why is the Minotaur still there? Ooh. Yeah, the poor Mino. Yeah, that is true. If Theseus killed the Minotaur, then there really wouldn't be any Minotaurs left. And again, the Medusa, the Minotaur, is another creature that has like a unique way about it. I believe the Colossus of Rhodes, Talos, the big giant that if you open up its heel, it's got a weakness in its heel. Same thing with Achilles. All right, baby. All right, love you. Absolutely. So because he didn't carry out the corpse. Well, then how did anybody know he killed the Minotaur? Well, he survived the maze, so they must have assumed he either escaped or killed the Minotaur. Maybe the real thing is he befriended them. Maybe we don't know. The myth is he killed the Minotaur, so that he befriends the Minotaur. The Minotaur says, listen, I can't leave because they'll kill me because I'm a monster. But people keep trying to come down here to kill me. So if people think I'm dead, no one will come into the maze. And Theseus is like, you know what? That's a cool idea. I'll let everybody know. I'll make a lie that I killed you, and we'll shut the maze off, and you can live down here in peace. And then I look like the hero, and it's a win-win for both of us. Ooh, Tesla Ranger says, didn't want to spoil it, but the PC becomes the new Minotaur. Ooh. Yeah, man. Oh, wow. But yeah, again, puzzles are actually a natural thing if we really think about it. And the puzzle doesn't necessarily, again, we don't need to, just summarizing, we don't need to have one answer. Solving the puzzle can be a combination of both die rolls and the characters figuring it out. Now, if you just don't want to go straight die roll, figure, die roll, done, I suggest literally telling players metagame wise, guys, put the dice down, put them down. I want to try something different. Let's just have some fun on the meta level of the game. And if some players might balk at it and go, well, my character's not that smart, or somebody else might say, well, my character really is very smart. I'm not that smart, but my character's smarter than me. Just go with it for a little bit. We'll do this for a couple of minutes. If you like it, sure, we'll keep doing it. If you don't, whatever, and just leave it open. Bruce says, I was trying to do DBJ's wife before she comes in to say bye. She did, yeah. Exactly. Oh man, but yeah, and thank you very much for that. Yeah, she goes off to work, and then I get ready another 15 minutes later or so, 15-20 minutes later, and because I'm a little closer to work. Ricker says, damn, the Mino is cursed to walk the halls for as long as they are alive, as someone always has to travel the halls. So if the players kill it, they get cursed and it's the ooh. Hey, we've seen that. Hey, that's a curse / puzzle kind of thing there as well. PCs get clue. Maybe the PCs get clues before they go into the maze. They go down, so they get the clue. They go down into the maze. Wow. Yeah, Prue's like, no. I mean, I love it. Yeah, that is mean. And that might be the way. Okay, here's another thing. They go down in the maze. They kill the Minotaur. Moments later, the Minotaur comes back alive. They kill it again. It comes back to life again. And they're like, well, why isn't this stopping? And then again, clue stick. Wait, we have clues. There's things written on the walls. We have this part on the back of the map, or whatever the case may be. And they realize this may keep repeating over and over and over again until they figure out a way to get out of it, to escape. Undo says lots of Greek monsters were puzzles. The Medusa, yep. The Cyclops with the eye. Yeah, the Hydra with the heads. If you cut off one head, 2 more will grow. And he had to use the fire. Absolutely. The siren songs, the sirens with the songs that would hypnotize you, and you had to hold your ears so you don't get hypnotized. And were the sirens in? I'm mixing this up in my head. I know there were sirens in the water, and it would make sailors walk off the deck of the boats. And I remember sirens on an island. I might be mixing these two up. A lot of Greek battles were tests of strength, were tests of strength and wits. Undo brings that up, where the tests, the puzzles themselves may be right up front in front of the players, right? The Sphinx that says, hey, if you can, Atlas in Holding the World, if you can roll the boulder up the hill, you can solve the situation. Or Atlas you need Atlas the Titan to do something for you, but he can't leave because he's holding the entire world on his shoulders. So now the PCs have to figure out a way to hold up the boulder, right? The world, whatever the case may be, the big giant thing. Maybe the barbarian in the group, the strongest character, has to hold the boulder up while the Titan leaves, so that the Titan then can get the other clue for the players to solve, to come back to hold it up again. And you could actually do this with Rickard says the island are the sirens. Is the island? I think I'm assuming the island was the original sirens, but I remember other writers using the sirens as like sirens / mermaids that would hypnotize pirates later on after the mythology of it. If I'm saying harpies are a great one. Harpies are nice low-level threats too. Rickard says recently learned that sirens are actually bird-like monsters with human heads and myths. Yeah, the harpy, which Dungeons and Dragons wise, they separated the two. But of course, yeah, harpies hypnotizing you. And this brings up something. Oh no, you guys are moving too fast. Okay. Rickard says you might notice that the Minotaur doesn't fight as ferociously as the players would expect. It doesn't kill them when it has a chance and such. Oh, like a cat and mouse thing with the Minotaur. That could be it. Prue says sirens equals harpies. I actually thought sirens equals mermaids. No, the harpies is something else. Yeah, harpies are humans with bird-like features. Sirens are birds with human heads. I think we are. I think we're getting into into the nitty gritty of something that is like not real, because both historically, not historically, mythologically, I'm sure people have. I wish I could. Oh, I wish I could broadcast images because I would do that right now. But again, the tests of strength, the tests of wits. You could even make these. How to explain it? You could make these. Um, Fourth edition did this a lot for Dungeons and Dragons, but you could make these stacked skill rolls, right? So, for example, for players who really want to make a bunch of skill rolls, what you could do is you could have them. The PCs are in a situation where they must achieve a number of successful skill rolls or ability checks or saving throws or what have you, combining all those together to achieve one particular thing. So, for example, and this also brings up something that I think is missing from some monsters. You're talking about sirens, like sirens, and oh, you posted an image in the Discord. Yeah, thank you. Sirens and creatures that like harpies and creatures like that. I think, especially for low-level creatures and low-level activities, um, having the players be able to solve it, and instead of just I kill it and it kills me, the players, like the Medusa, like the harpies, like the sirens, are put in a position where one by one, each of them are quote unquote taken out but not killed. So the other players might be able to finagle their way or figure their way out of the puzzle to solve the situation. Giant spiders are a perfect example of this, where a giant spider might entrap the PCs into a web without killing them, and then the PCs may have to figure out to both save their friend who's trapped inside of the web, who's strung up inside of like a cocoon, and then the other players are going around doing something else. So I think creatures that do things that create more obstacles, and I understand on a meta level, this sounds like, well, why wouldn't the creature just kill kill the hero? Well, let's look at Star Wars, right? Luke Skywalker gets smacked in the head, taken out, and his feet are frozen up into the ceiling of the Wampa who wants to eat him later. So creatures can very well do things where they put them into a cage or hypnotize them or make them turn into animals. Oh, guys, I know you know this already. There is another mythological creature. I want to say the name is Circe. Anyway, there was an evil hag or woman that men would come to her island and she would polymorph them into animals. And so the new people come to the island, Odysseus or whoever comes to the island, and they see this person with a bunch of animals, and then they realize that the visitors to the island become polymorphed. So maybe the players are cursed and become polymorphed and as a pig and a rat and a dog or on a bird. And is it Circe? Yeah. And maybe the PCs to escape. Yeah, wow, I'm giving myself a round of applause. I got something right. So maybe the PCs get polymorphed into something and have to work together as polymorphed creatures to get themselves out of it. Or maybe the PCs are given a concoction, they are taken out and they are shrunk down to only 3 inches tall. So or maybe the PCs go to the giant's kingdom where the PCs are regular size, but everything else is so big that they're only 3 inches tall. And so they have to work together to pick up the 500-pound key that unlocks the gate or the door or something. Or the PCs have to work together to push the plate off of the table, or they make a lever and use the fork or a spoon to fling one of the PCs into the jello or something. Like, you could have really fun with that. You could have the PCs are trapped like the spider, where they have to cut themselves loose from being entrapped or in a cage, but the cage is dangling over a pit of lava or fire or spikes or acid or something. And so they don't necessarily want to just cut themselves out, but maybe they have to swing the cage back and forth to not only unlock the cage, but then jump out of the cage onto the ledge or something like that. So you could compound a number of interactions and hazards together and stack them and have them try to solve each one at a time. Bruce says, I'm reading a book named Circe that's based in Greek mythology at the moment. I'm not very far in, but so far I don't hate it, which is interesting because I'm usually kind of done with Greek mythology. It depends. Again, it depends on the writers, right? It could be very dry. Some people are historians trying to write novels, and it's like, yeah, I like the facts, but if you just made this a little more interesting, I might have liked this even more. There's also the idea that the PCs may be in a situation where they're creating their own problems. One idea was PCs are in the Arctic winter. They go into a cave, a frozen cave of ice and snow and frost. They start a fire. They end up realizing that there are things frozen into the ice around them in the cave, but in order to survive the harsh winters, they need the fire. But the fire starts melting the ice, releasing like undead creatures in the ice. So they're put in a position of, we need a fire to survive, but it's going to release evil, and we're in the cold. If we put the fire out, we're going to freeze, but it'll stop the undead that are coming after us. What do we do? And so you could have the balancing the scales puzzles. I love what Undo brought up about the Greek, the mythological tests of intelligence and strength, where maybe the PCs know exactly what the puzzle is. It is not solving the puzzle, it is actually performing the puzzle. So they might, for example, to get through the door, you have to perform the 12 tests, right? And so the PCs automatically know what those tests are. One might be to steal the flag, steal the banner off the highest peak of the castle of so-and-so. And of course, the PCs have to climb up there or finagle their way up to get to the banner that's the big flag that, you know, everyone can see for miles around. But of course, the guards don't want you to do that. The people might not even, you know. So do the PCs convince the king to give it to them? Do they steal it? Do they, I don't know, break it, finagle a way to fly up there and break it off the top? Do they distract the guards and then someone else goes up there? Do they replace it with something else? You know. Yeah, Rickard says, hate to be that guy, but you should probably start heading out for the Mondays. Yeah, you're right. It is getting late, guys. Thank you very much, Rickard. I appreciate you guys. Again, there will be some videos coming. They may not be live. They will be premiered. So I apologize for that, but there are things coming up. Honey-do lists. Work schedule's changing slightly, but not enough to make me leave. So guys, thank you very much for coming in. Anyone who's gotten this far into the video, please join the Discord. Everybody in the chat who's far smarter than I am, far more brilliant and creative, they're the ones to talk to. So please join the Discord as well. JP created that as well. Everyone have a great day. Again, let's not measure our loves by our hates. Let's just bring some more positivity into the world, and you know, not bring any evil and dark things into our tabletop RPG community. And lastly, next to my face somewhere will eventually be some videos, so I'm pointing to them, clicking on like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, share things around. I would really appreciate it. That's really great. Guys, thank you for joining me. Everyone have a great one. See you tomorrow. Bye. What are you